Hello guys, and welcome back to Bright Founders Talk from Temi, an international software development company that designs, builds and delivers world-class standard products for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today with us guys, we've got a new guest, Litan Yahav. Tell me if I said that right, Litan, in a second. Co-founder and CEO at Vyzer. Litan, first of all, how to correctly pronounce the name? Let's tell the audience.
It's all right, man. I'm used to it. So it's Litan or Litan Yahav. So you did it well.
Okay, I was almost there. Okay, Litan, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I'd like to know a bit more about the CEO and the co-founder that we're speaking to before we go into the world of everything that you're doing. So tell me maybe something that not so many people know about you.
I'm pretty open, so everything's out there. But I used to play the saxophone when I was a kid.
Interesting.
That's really random, yeah. So maybe we could dive into other background stuff, but that's like the one thing I don't think many people know about me.
I looked into your background a little bit before we started today, and I saw you spent some time in the Navy as well. Tell me a little bit about that experience and how that has helped you in your entrepreneurial role.
Right. So yeah. So I'm in Israel, and in Israel, military service is mandatory. I stayed in for 6 years as an officer in the Navy, and as part of that, it was sort of leading teams in a lot of uncertainty and dealing with extreme situations, but also making a lot with little and thinking out of the box in terms of solving those types of problems. There's this phrase, Israeli military, is that this is what we have and we got to win with it. So that's like this sort of win at all costs mindset.
Has it actually given you that though? Because a lot of people that come out of the military say that it's something that's given them kind of the basis, the solid kind of beliefs in their life. Have you felt that it has helped you achieve success in your roles?
I don't know if it's one specific thing in my life, which is the military I can take all the credit for that, but I do think it definitely contributed a lot to putting things in perspective, dealing with people and dealing with uncertainty, which in my life, which is the startup world, is a lot of all that.
Absolutely. Okay, I've got some fast questions for you. Yes, no, or one-word answers. I'm going to reel them over to you, and then you're going to answer. First of all, morning person, are you?
I am.
Team or independently?
Team.
Risk taker?
Yes.
Is work-life balance important to you?
Today, it's more than ever because I'm married and have 3 little kids. Very different than it was in my last startup where I was more just with a girlfriend.
Do you enjoy networking events?
Yes.
Have you ever pivoted your business's model?
Yes.
Most people have. It's a rare occurrence if they haven't. Are you focused on more long-term or short-term goals?
I think any goals have to be both short-term and long-term. So I think it's probably 50-50.
Okay. Do you consider yourself to be a hands-on CEO?
100%.
What is your best skill?
I really care about people.
What is your worst habit?
Impatience.
Yeah, I can join you there. And are you happy with this year's success?
I'm never happy with this year's success. I always want more.
Okay, cool. Let's go right back to the beginning. Tell me where the idea came from and where were you at the moment when you had this idea? Was it kind of a build-up of many months of thinking, or was it a one moment light bulb moment?
So this business is a business that we founded out of me and my co-founder's own need after selling our last company. And this was founded as a solution for us to manage our own wealth after selling a company. And then it turned out to be something that a lot of other people needed as well. And that's what turned it into a new startup. And we only turned it into a formal new startup after interviewing hundreds of people around the world that have been or are in our situation and understanding that they need it as well. And so that's sort of different. It's a long answer to a short question, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Tell me, where did the name come from?
Looking for a catchy name, and Vyzer basically is, it's not written well, but Vyzer is also sort of like an advisor, but also like visors that protect your eyes or protect your head. So like we protect and we also give insights and some sort of advice, but that's sort of where it came from.
How important is a good kind of catchy name? Is it something that people who are starting their found out their startup businesses now? Is it something that they should be thinking about for a long time, or is it something they should just get to work with?
Get to work with. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about the MVP. How did it look, the original MVP?
All right. So like I said, the first version of our product was for us. And so it was ugly and breakable, and
should be.
It served as a utility for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we founded a formal company and raised some money, we iterated on that, and then another MVP, which was just nicer and with more functionality, and then launched it to a better set of like alpha users, and then iterated and keep on iterating. Like we're always iterating. I think now it's more an MVP for each specific feature that we launch, and then test it, and then go deep on it.
And go deeper and deeper. Okay. Tell me, what specific challenges or pain points in wealth management does Vyzer aim to address for the investors? What are the specific ones?
So Vyzer is a service and platform for people that have complexity, meaning they have a portfolio of diverse investments and a financial life, but not enough complexity or not enough wealth where it makes sense to go and form their own family office. And so people in that situation are usually, they're too big to use a budgeting app, but they're not big enough to go and get a family office. And so they're in this situation where they build crazy spreadsheets and a lot of like cumbersome documents and emails coming in all the time. And so it's this mess of like, of information and cash and going in and out. And so that's where Vyzer sits in to help solve those problems for that segment of the industry, which just don't have a solution.
So you've been going now for about 2.5 years, over 2.5 years. I think it was 2 years, 11 months since November 2020. What has been the biggest challenge which you have faced in those kind of, how long has it been now? Almost 3 years. What has been the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is the challenge that almost every startup faces, and that's choosing what to focus on. Going broad into the spray and pray in terms of a product standpoint is very dangerous, because you'll basically do a lot of like small things, but a lot of small things instead of focusing on one thing and doing it really well. And so for us, our biggest challenge is what product, feature, functionality, value proposition do we double down on now to bring the most value? And once we bring a lot of value on that, we move to the next one. And so deciding on that is our biggest challenge, what to focus on in terms of a product.
How do you decide that?
A lot of user interviews, a lot of data, drill down and sort of understanding from our data, from like the usability of the product, from conversations, for feedback. What do our clients need the most urgent? What is preventing them for like completely adopting our product for their problem? Or why are customers churning, and what can we fix to eliminate churn or reduce churn? So just like focusing on that is a big challenge, because there's so many things we want to do, and deciding that one thing we want to do today or this quarter or this year is the biggest challenge.
How important is your co-founder in helping you kind of choose that challenge? You said at the beginning that you are impatient. Obviously, when you're impatient and you're trying to decide what to do, it's a very difficult task, because you want to do everything at the same time, because you want everything to, you want to achieve your results as quickly as possible. How important is your personal co-founder in this situation? Is it kind of like a yin and yang, or how does that work?
100%. Yeah. So me and my co-founder are really good friends. He's basically my second wife, if you ask. Depends. Sometimes you get my first wife, depending who you ask. But yeah, we do. We also give each other a lot of, hard questions when things need to be done, and we also really support each other. And I think that's when you ask that question, like, would I prefer individual or a team? Definitely a team, just because it's a lot more fun, it's a lot more interesting, it's a lot more self-development wise. You help each other be better people, better founders, better executives. And so we are very supportive of each other, and it's very important for us to work together in building the best company possible.
How do you make sure that this marriage stays together? Obviously, marriages, as a usual thing, fall apart quite a lot. But how do you make sure that your startup marriage stays solid?
That's a great question. I think a lot of startups fail because of co-founder issues and, don't believe in the same vision, don't see eye to eye in a lot of things that are done on a day-to-day basis. And so I think it's a super important question. And I think for us, our last startup sort of was at testing curve, which just was really successful, and we worked really well together and we really complete each other, but we're also really similar. We like to call, it's also important not just for co-founders, but I think also for initial employees. We have this thing we call the beer test, which is a stupid test, but it's a test that's important for us, especially in the smaller, earlier stages. Sort of everyone in the company needs to be someone that at the end, like of a long day at midnight, 2 a.m., we'd all go want to get a drink together. For us, that's really important. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that's important, but that's like a deal breaker if they don't pass. So it's also dangerous because if you're too much alike, then you don't complete each other, and then you can't really succeed in achieving like big things because you don't complete. But I think the balance between those two things is really important.
So it's kind of like failing together, winning together. Yeah, you've got to celebrate those moments together at the end. Tell me, in regards to when I asked you at the beginning, are you happy with this year's success so far? Obviously, never happy with the success, always want more. What is that, tell me about that kind of personality, always wanting more. Is that a positive or a negative part of your kind of entrepreneurial style? Is it something that makes you go forwards, or is it something that holds you back sometimes, that you're not able to enjoy kind of the results that you've got?
I don't think the approach ever holds you back. Always wanting more. There is a sort of psychological aspect of always wanting more, can be something that has a price from a psychological standpoint, right? Because you're never satisfied. But I think from a business standpoint, always wanting more and trying to achieve it in, ethical, proper ways is something it's a good aspect and a good trait to have as a founder. You always want more clients. You always want to make more money. You always want to bring more value. You always want to team to be. There's always more.
Tell me about that. So 9 months into this year, almost the closing part of the year is coming. What has been the highlight of the year to date, and what has been the biggest challenge to date?
I think the highlight was, so we launched a product at the end of last year, and we sort of didn't pivot, but we did sort of pivot a month and a half ago, adding a different type of business model. And doing that was a risk, but turned out to be a very good decision to make as a company, because we doubled our revenue within a month as opposed to prior 6 months. And so that was a really good success and good highlight. The biggest challenge is replicating that now. How do we keep on growing at a very high velocity over a long period of time? And that's the biggest challenge to date, which is things that, like, in addition to choosing what product feature and we want to work on, it's how do we keep on growing exponentially from a revenue and client perspective.
And tell me, in regards to, obviously you were saying there about like the winning and losing together, going out and having that beer at the end of the day. Does that mean most of your team, is it located in Israel, or are you kind of hybrid work all over the world? What is the kind of setup?
Most of our team is in Israel. We have a team in the US and a team in the Philippines. It is a challenge to keep everyone sort of in the same mindset. That beer test is pretty hard to do when you don't see people, and we still haven't hacked exactly the way to sort of replicate the face-to-face model to everyone abroad. Other than when we go abroad, we try to meet up while we're there and have some face-to-face time between team members. But it is a challenge.
Tell me, what is the kind of Israeli way of working? So I live in Ukraine here. Our company is Ukrainian. Ukrainians don't stop working. I've never seen a hard kind of working species, let's call it. And the people they have more than one job. They work morning to night. They never mow. What is the kind of Israeli way?
I think it's very similar. I think there's always this sort of hunt to achieving success, to achieving big things. The work-life balance in the startup world and in the tech world, generally speaking, and also in Israel specifically, is a very long day of work, but everyone really feels like devoted, and it's like part of our lives, right? Just like, second wife is our second family. Like we like if there's an issue, everyone will get up in the middle of the night and go and solve the problem, or on the weekend, and so it's the same mentality as the military. Like I said at the beginning, like people are really, because everyone here has been in the military, and so because we've all had that similar background, the commodity or whatever that word is in English, where everyone has this devotion or need to help each other out, is really there.
Good. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about your personal journey. Obviously, not a first-time founder. You've done it before. You know the highs and the lows. You know how it works. Tell me, if you could go back right to the beginning and say to your younger self, kind of 3 rules of how to build a better startup, what would those 3 rules be, which you now know and didn't know then?
One, and I just said this in the challenge, is focus. Like choose one thing to focus on and do it the best you can. Mm-hmm. And not don't try to do 10 things at the same time. 2, the beer test is super important also with early employees, and we failed at that at our last company at the beginning, and unfortunately hired people that did not fit, and we had to let go of them, and that's never something you want to do. 3 is, and this I learned at the end of my last company, but when you start the company, you don't know where it's going to end. And so don't block any doors that might be able to be open in the future, in terms of, we made an agreement where we gave this company exclusivity, but that ended up being like one of the best revenue streams for us. But we just didn't think that was feasible when we get from the get-go. That was our last company. And so I think it's sort of like, you don't know where you're going to be, so don't close any doors while you're moving forward.
Sure. You spoke there again at the beginning from those quick questions you said about work-life balance is important to you. You've got 3 kids. Obviously, this kind of situation has changed over the last 5-10 years. Work-life balance wasn't a thing, especially in kind of Israel, in the West, in the UK, in America. Not quite reached. Ukraine never has. How has that had a positive or negative impact on companies now? Is it so you have seen personally that before, I guess, when you started doing your startups, you were working 12-hour, 14-hour, 15-hour days. Now, not so much. Do those 12, 15 hours days, are they as effective as having a work-life balance?
I think that it depends, and that's a political answer. It really does depend. I still work long hours. I just carve out time to be with the family in the middle, right? So I'll go home and I'll be with my kids in the evening and put them to sleep, but then afterward I might go and work until like the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. And it's tiring, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the productivity of getting things done, even if it's in the middle of the night. It's fine. It just bothers when it comes on account of spending time with your wife and your kids, and so it's important just for me to put boundaries. So to your question, I think it helps you focus on that. Like during those work hours, you're really like doing everything possible to get as much stuff done. There's not a lot of sitting back and not getting shit done. And also, and the second aspect, and this isn't about exactly work-life balance, but like I think when you have a family, it puts a lot of things in life into perspective, especially in the startup world as well. And I think I didn't have that perspective. Even stress, which we have a lot of in the startup world. At the end of the day, your health and your family is what matters. And so put things into perspective when you think about stress. I mean, at the end of the day, even if it's a hard day and you need to close a funding round and you're not growing as much as you wanted, all right, but at least you're healthy and at least you have a family and that's healthy. And so it just put things into perspective.
What is your opinion about, obviously now with a lot of hybrid models, I'm not sure how many people you get going into the office every day, but you've got obviously your US office, your Philippines office as well. What do you think about this kind of hybrid model of, are we requiring from people, from our staff these days, more, not even requiring more, do we expect more? Because there's no such 9 to 5 anymore. The laptop closes and off you go. Has the requirements changed? Is it to the point of you finish your work when work is finished, or you finish your work when the clock hits 5, 6, 7? What?
Yeah, it's such company specific and culture specific. I think that so ours is not, it's not the clock in, clock out. It's more get the shit done. Mm-hmm. And if need be, then we'll work late and we'll work on the weekends and we'll get shit done because there's stuff that we need to deliver, because we're also really transparent with our team. Like everyone's really in the weeds of like what's happening with the company, customers, fundraising, everything's, because it's like a family, right? Everyone needs to understand why there's an urgency. And if there's an urgency, well, why we all need to sort of like work together now and get it done. And so I don't believe in putting, clock in, clocking out. Obviously, if someone takes advantages of that, either they won't be in the company or they're going to get, that talk of like, all right, listen, like we also come into the office 3 times a week, same 3 days, so that we can be together and work together. And the other 2 days are from home, and I think it's a good balance.
Tell me, the future of Vyzer. What is the future?
Vyzer is going to become the ultimate family office for everyone. That's sort of what we're working towards, and it's a really big challenge, and that's why we're building it in pieces. And right now, where we're at is that initial phase of this family office, which we're already onboarding clients and getting revenue from. But the idea is to add more and more components of a family office so that we give full service, not just to the billionaires, but to everyone.
And last question, lasting thought that you want to leave with our listeners. What would be the lasting thought which you want to leave with them for them to remember about Vyzer?
We're all about bringing value to our clients. And that's also why we don't sell our clients anything, and we don't convince them to give them their money for us to manage. So it's just like, how do we bring as much value as possible to our clients? And then in return, how do we be a profitable company and capture that value in terms of revenue? I don't know if that answers the question, but that's sort of...
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it does. Litan, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to pick your brain. I did say before we started, that's what I'm going to be doing, and definitely did so. And I wish you and Vyzer all the best in the future, and hopefully we'll link up and then see it expanding and becoming exactly what you just explained.
Thank you so much, man. Great meeting you.